All right, showtime. Let me know if you can hear me and see me. If you could do me that favor, that would be amazing. And if you can hear me, tell me where you're tuning in from and what is your biggest frustration when it comes to storytelling. All right, who's with me live? Who's early? I know we're a couple minutes early, as usual. I almost had a heart attack testing all of my stuff, and then my camera for a second wasn't working. So I'm excited that I was able to get it up so quickly. All right, let me know if you can hear me or see me. Yes. Hi, Melissa. Wonderful. All right. So if you are tuning in, please let me know what is your biggest frustration when it comes to storytelling. I am so curious. Help me understand so that we ensure that we cover your questions. So let me know in the chat, what is your biggest frustration when it comes to storytelling? All right. Excited to see you, Rasika. Excited to see you, Hector. Let me know in the chat, what is your biggest frustration when it comes to storytelling? I am so curious. Underplaying my contributions and long winded answer. Remembering what I want to say. Yes. Yes. Who saw my most recent carousel with tips on how to remember what to say? Yes. Brevity is my weakness. Same thing. Um, being concise is one of the biggest challenges for many of my leadership clients, especially people who have more than 10 years of experience. The more experience you have, the harder it becomes. Memory, another vote for remembering what you've done. Yes, oh my God. Trying to dig through, how do I even describe it? It's like a cobweb of experiences that you're trying to just like lift all the cobwebs and see the actual experiences and try and shine a light to it is always a challenge. Preparation is key for a job interview, coming up with engaging, authentic stories. Hector, I'm curious about your struggle, not your advice. Because if you already have the information, then I'm not going to know how to address your questions, right? I want you to come in with something new, clear and concise. Yes. Okay, good. All right. So if you are here to learn how to become a better storyteller and get offers without faking it till you make it during interviews, then you are in the right place. Because who here wants to be authentic? Give me a like if you actually want to be authentic in the interview and land a job by being the real you so that when you join, you don't have to put a mask on and be a zombie at work. Who wants to achieve that? Anyone? 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 Yes, Robert. Yes, authenticity. Okay, so for the last 3.5 years, my job has been making people laugh and cry. Oh no, what does that mean? Okay, let me show you guys before you get worried. Here's a few examples of some of my clients who landed jobs. And when I say that they've gone through transformations that have made them so emotional, meaning laugh and cry, it is an understatement. You can see here one of my clients sharing that her heart is beating fast. Apparently, my job is to make people's heart beat fast. I have received and accepted an offer. I'm super excited for this journey. Another client of mine, it's been a roller coaster of a week, But my win of the week is that today I received and signed an offer for a product owner position. I would have never been able to do this. And this one is the best one. I'm going to swear. So if you have kids, maybe put me on mute for a second. Holy shit. I just got my first recruiter message post LinkedIn revision for a product position with a company I've only ever dreamed of. I am dead. I died. This is amazing. I swear to God, no one dies. This is an expression. She was happy. Okay. Oh, and also some of my clients end up getting pets because of the number of offers that they get. All right. What makes me an expert here today? What makes me an expert is because I have helped more than 100 professionals in more than 7 countries land jobs that they love at companies like Amazon, Slalom, Red Hat, Loblaws, and the list goes on. And by the way, Disney was one of them. And no, this is not where the idea came from for this live. All right. How did I do this? It was through the power of storytelling. So let me help you explain why I am such a huge advocate of storytelling. Okay. Why am I a huge advocate of storytelling? Because as much as pretty much all of my clients went through this transformation, and the clients that I'm very passionate about working with are usually clients who don't follow the typical career trajectory, because it is fulfilling for me to see someone who was invisible finally get recognized. And why is that? Because I was invisible. This was me more than 3.5 years ago. If you zoom in, you're going to see uh, definitely look more on the cute side rather than the executive presence side, with only close to 600 connections. And today on the right side, you can see that I have more than 25,000 followers at this point, and I'm obviously no longer invisible. Let me tell you something. For those of you who feel that you need Canadian experience or US experience, for those of you who feel that you need to have the degrees and certifications, for those of you who feel that you need to know someone in order to be successful and land at these companies like Amazon and the big tech, but you need an MBA for that. Well, let me share with you something. I'm an immigrant. I came here at the age of 18, and no one taught me anything about entrepreneurship. I didn't go to and get an MBA degree in order to learn how to be an entrepreneur. And I also did not learn marketing or sales, but I have built a 6-figure business literally in the span of 3.5 years without having tons and tons of years of experience as a career coach. So obviously, when you go through that, when you go through such a transformation, you also go through a lot of hardships. There were days where I was literally sitting outside of the vet clinic with my dog in the cold with barely any cash in my checking account, wondering how I'm going to pay the vet bill. So when you go through these hardships, the achievements become more meaningful. They become more powerful. And so knowing that feeling of accomplishment, knowing that I'm finally getting what I deserve in my life is what drives me to work with people who don't go through these, fancy degrees, certifications, and create an insane transformation in their life. So this is why this means a lot to me, because if you look at my LinkedIn posts, I don't advertise. Everything that has skyrocketed my business and has helped my clients came through learning the ABCs of how to tell a good story. Okay, so this is why this is personal for me, and this is why I'm the right person to tell you about storytelling. Okay, so I'm gonna share with you all a warning. And the warning is if you're looking for a quick fix to shuffle a bunch of experiences on your resume and trick the fictitious bots, okay, that don't exist because God help me, the HR industry is so outdated. They're behind when it comes to AI, and there's no such thing. And it's actually people who manually review your resume, but that's another topic. Um, if you're from that camp where you don't want to learn something different and you just want to chat GPT your story because someone else came up with a similar story, that's how chat GPT knows what that story is, and you want to sound like everyone else, then this is definitely, definitely not the session for you. Just trying to save everyone's time here. All right. But if you're the kind of person who wants to be real, who wants to be a leader, who basically cares about people and is authentic, then this is for you. All right? Awesome. Who wants to learn how to be a great storyteller and share their authentic story? I'm curious. Tell me in the chat. Anyone? Anyone values being themselves in the workplace? No one? I know there's a little bit of lag when you guys, okay, put messages in the chat. Me, yes, yes. Awesome. I was just wondering for a second, should I continue or not? All right, wonderful. Thank you everyone for participating. Okay, so let's talk about it. I want to tell you a story about storytelling. How I became a great storyteller was actually from my father. This is a photo of my father, and my father was very sneaky. He's a dentist, so he's pretty big on, not eating candy and not eating sugar. My goodness, I wasn't even allowed to eat lollipops when I was a kid. And I remember, well, I'm not going to spoil the story, but I wasn't allowed to eat candy. I'll keep it at that. So, how did my father get me to listen to him? He was sneaky. He used stories to get me to listen. And he would tell me this story of a monster who kidnaps kids that eat candy. And he'd describe him as this, like scary monster with these horns, and he sneaks at night and finds these kids who eat candy. So of course I was scared to death because of that monster. And that story fulfilled my father's wish. He got me to stop eating candy. So I learned from my father that the best way to get anyone to listen to you is to actually tell them an entertaining story. Because here's the deal: no one wants to get sold or nagged, no one wants to be told what to do. So the best way to inspire someone to take action is to tell them a story. That's what I learned from my father. Your child is never going to listen to you if you tell them what to do. Your spouse, not trying to create trouble here, but your spouse is not going to listen. Your coworker is not going to listen, and definitely not a hiring manager. If you go up to a hiring manager and say, hire me, hire me, hire me, are they going to listen to you? They're not going to listen to you. So you have to tell them a story in order to inspire them to take action. Here's the deal: If you want to stand out in the crowd of applicants, and I know you all share with me day in and day out, I talk to thousands of people in 1 month, and everyone tells me the job market is bad. It's becoming extremely difficult to stand out. There are more than 800 people who applied for a job. What do I do? How do I stand out? And if a hiring manager has interviewed, 2, 3, 4, 5 people in 1 week, how do you expect them to remember your story, right? You need to be memorable. So here's a question for you all. What makes a story memorable? Pop quiz. And if you all know me, I'm the kind of person who really encourages you to participate. You don't want this to be another training that you attended and just put on the shelf, right? Studies have shown that when learners participate, the information is solidified. So I invite you for the next 45 minutes to try so hard to not look at your phone. It might just be worth it, especially if you're struggling with landing a job right now. Okay? So, question: what makes a story memorable? Come on, let's see who can get this right. Ooh, Julie, great job. Wow, the first answer is the right answer. Yes, relatable, also correct answer. Mystery and identity, okay. Drama part, emotion, something unique, relatable. When others can relate, it's a true story. When it's unique and original, all great questions. But the common basically thread here in all of your answers, think about a movie that you watched. The chances of you remembering it is if it evoked an emotion in you. Being vulnerable and personal is a way to evoke emotion. Yes. So it's the feeling that the story evokes. But what do you all do? What do you all do when you're writing your resumes, when you're interviewing? You just, become an instructional manual and put a bunch of keywords and there's no emotion. And then we all wondered, why didn't we get that call? Right? Here's the deal. Back to my story of the monster who kidnaps people when they eat candy. Why do you think I still remember that story to this day? Even though my father shared it to me when I was 5 years old, I still remember that story because I was so scared, emotion, of that monster. And that scary feeling is what got me to do what my father wanted me to do. I literally was so terrified of that monster that when the teacher used to give out lollipops when we got the right answer, I'd literally get so scared. I'd come home and I'd give the lollipop to my dad. That's how scared I was. So today I am going to teach you how to tell a story that sticks, stirs emotion, and drives the decision to hire you. I am going to teach you how to get your hiring manager to basically take action. That's what I'm going to teach you. Just like how my father got me to take action because of that monster. All right? So, this session is in memory of my father, who is going through Alzheimer's. He is not doing that great. And I just wanted to dedicate that, not going to tear up, in his honor because of how he taught me how to be a great storyteller. So I really, truly hope that you enjoy this session. Okay, getting into it. A lot of these concepts come from a multi-billion-dollar industry, also known as Disney, which basically owns Pixar. And there are 22 rules of storytelling, but obviously we're not going to have time to go through all of them. Not to mention that I focused on the ones that are relevant to job seekers, okay? Because we're not trying to create Disney movies here. As much as I love Disney movies, imagine if we did that, all of us, for a living. I have some clients who do, but not everyone gets that opportunity. But yeah, I took these basically storytelling tricks and made them relatable to job seekers. So here's a fun question. What's your favorite Disney character? Share with me in the chat. What's your Disney favorite character? Come on. Because if no one knows about Disney, then this presentation is going to be pointless. I might as well stop and not share with you all these amazing, storytelling frameworks that are more fun than using star. Ariel, very cool. Scrooge McDuck, Stitch, Coco. Yes, yes. Now, tell me why that's your favorite character. Tell me why, out of all of the Disney characters, that's your favorite character. Why did you decide to pick that character? Cinderella. There's nothing wrong with Cinderella. All right. So what made you choose that character? What made you choose that Disney character? I'm so curious. Anyone? Snow White, Rapunzel, Woody and Buzz from Toy Story, the little girl from Brave. Yes. So a lot of you pick these characters because they inspire you, right? And they evoke an emotion in you. Okay. He's got personality and always gets into trouble. Yes. Wonderful. Okay, another question. Who knows what is the return rate of a first-time visit to Disney? Anyone can guess the number? What is the likelihood of someone who visits Disney for the first time to return? 70% return rate. That is the statistic. Isn't that insane? So we know for a fact that Disney knows how to be memorable and knows how to sell their ideas without being salesy. So who wants to increase their chances to get a second interview by 70%? Anyone? Who wants to increase their chances to get a second interview by 70%? I don't know about you, but when I was a job seeker, I would have loved to increase my chances for a second interview by 70% because it was close to zero. Okay. If you're still skeptical about how these Disney techniques can help you, I'm going to show you this simple image, and it's pretty much going to tell you the whole story. On the left, it says stop climate change before it changes you. On the right, it says stop climate change. Which one which ad would you remember? I'm pretty sure that most of you, after you leave this live, are going to remember the image on the left versus the image on the right, because it invokes an emotion in you and because it truly tells you a story. I mean, that person turning into a fish says it all. Okay, that is what I want to teach you how to do with your messaging. Someone looks at your resume and it creates the same effect that this image on the left creates. versus you having to over-explain yourself, right? All right. Okay. Here are some mistakes that most of you are making because we got to learn our mistakes in order to learn how to fix them. Number one, this is a mistake that I see often. I actually experienced that mistake coaching a client today. Mistake number one is when you tell your stories, you create mixed feelings. What do I mean about that? Here's what happens when you tell a story that doesn't focus on one feeling. Spam. And if you get a whole bunch of like flyers in your mailbox, it is so annoying. This happens to me to this day. A lot of these ads create mixed messages. They're not focused. They're all over the place. They trigger a lot of emotions. And this is what you're doing. This is what you're doing when you're sharing with a recruiter or a hiring manager a story. I did this and I built this roadmap and I aligned all these stakeholders and oh wait, let me just add this one more thing to the story. You lost the person. You're creating mixed messages. The recruiter who just heard your story doesn't know how to feel after they've heard your story. That's what happens. Okay? So a few days ago in my community Slack, someone was sharing their story and another person, a community member, was literally bombarding that person with all of these things that he needs to add. Oh, but you gotta talk about how you use your design skills in the story, and you also need to talk about your strategic thinking, and you also need to talk about the roadmap. My head hurt just looking at the story. The story became more diluted and diluted, and it became a laundry list. And it's the exact thing that I see day in and day out looking at people's LinkedIn profiles and looking at their resume. There's just so many ideas, so many ideas. And I know it's hard because none of us have gotten a PhD in marketing or became like a recruiter so that we understand how to basically understand their psychology and then come up with basically a message that resonates. And I'm going to pause for a moment because City, you just shared something that I'm going to immediately address. ATS tracker throws you off. Okay, friends. I feel like I share this every single live, but I am going to do it. I'm going to do it again. First of all, I'm in a community with someone who spent so many years in recruitment and was a former product manager and understands the inside and out of the application tracking system. And believe me, he continues to share with me how it is outdated and how he is trying to actually introduce AI. So let me quickly understand how the application tracking system works. And I say this not as someone who heard rumors. I say this as someone who has used it and talked to multiple vendors and saw the back end and collaborates with recruiters and has been mentored by an executive recruiter who actually used the application tracking system because HR is broad and not everyone in HR actually sources candidates or uses the application tracking system. Note how the name of the application tracking system is not application screening or sourcing system. It's a tracking system. Imagine a Trello board to organize your tasks. All the application tracking system does is it helps the recruiter organize applications. And imagine like a Kanban board where they manually decide to put the pile of resumes that they have screened and rejected in one pile, and the pile of resumes that they screen and decide to move on to the next phase, which is an interview. That's what the application tracking system does. Now, when you apply on a website, That is part of that is the front end of the application tracking system. You submit your information, it is stored in a database. And you upload your resume, which is stored in a record in the database. And there is an opportunity for you to basically copy and paste portions of your resume because maybe the system wasn't able to pre-populate those fields. So there's an opportunity for you to correct them. Now, on the back end, when you submit your application, the recruiter gets a notification and decides and reads over it, decides you're moving forward or not. And the reason a lot of you get thrown off and think that there's some kind of bot or some magic or some logic that is determining if you have the right keywords is because there is a part of the application tracking system that is automated, but it's not what you think. It's not the matching part. There isn't a decision-making system in these application tracking systems. There are a couple of fields. One of them will ask you, what's your salary expectation? It's going to have some options for you to put in the salary. Another one could be, do you have the right visa requirements, or are you able to work, without sponsorship? Something along those lines, right? If you put a salary that's too high, you automatically get disqualified because there is logic tied to that field, and that is why you get an automated rejection. Okay? So let us get the idea of an automated application tracking system out of our head because that does not exist. And if you're still not convinced, I can share with you proof after this live. Okay, a little segue. We're going back to the storytelling. Going back, this is what most people's answers sound like. They try to stuff their stories with multiple ideas, right? And again, I know it's hard. And that's why a lot of you say, I have trouble with being concise, because you're trying to put too many ideas and you're trying to create too many takeaways for the hiring manager. And the truth is, you're not the only person who makes this mistake, because even Disney made that mistake. Disney, who are the gods of storytelling, made that mistake. So I want you to look at this image of Ratatouille. Anyone has seen the movie Ratatouille? One of my favorite movies. So if you ask me who's my favorite character, it's actually Ratatouille. So if you look at his image, you see him dancing with a carrot. And the story that this ad for the movie tells is so confusing because we don't know what Ratatouille is. Is he a lover? Is he a dancer? What does that mean? And this is what happens when we're sending out the wrong feeling, when we're confused and we're trying to say too much, right? Do we want the person looking at it to feel like, oh, I want to dance? Do we want them to eat healthy? I mean, what the heck are they doing with that image? Now, I want you to look at this image. Why is this image better than the previous one? Because it is focusing on one concept and one emotion. Your eyes are just looking at those knives, and you're seeing a rat who is dying to be a chef. He's in a kitchen. The knives are relevant to being in a kitchen and being a chef, and you can see that the guy is literally fighting to be a chef. Do you see how powerful the story is when you're creating a single emotion, when you are broadcasting a single idea? So I want you to think about that for a moment. When you write your stories, when you're sharing something with a hiring manager or recruiter, are you leaving them with one feeling, or are you trying to say too much? Okay. Now, I'm going to tell you why people struggle with being concise, with writing stories that basically leave someone with an emotion, and why a lot of you send mixed messages in your resume. Even though you're saying that you're a product manager, I see project management in there that you were managing, and I see a little bit of, I don't know, design, and I see a little bit of something else, and I'm confused. What does this person want to do? Are they truly a product manager, or they just want to solve everyone's problems? Is the company trying to get a 3-for-1 deal, or what? Is that what you guys think? That they pay a 3-for-1 deal? I mean, sometimes it feels that way, but you want your branding to be focused, right? And a big root cause of that is a lot of you don't know your North Star. So I'm going to share with you an example of what I mean by having a North Star. So some of you may have actually seen this post where I shared about my story of how I left my home country because my father threw a can of car oil at me, right? And how I felt that I had to start my life over, because if I didn't, I wouldn't have had a choice. I wouldn't have been safe. And by going through that and moving to a new country and finding what I love and overcoming all these hurdles, I realized that starting over is a blessing. Because if I hadn't quit over text and I hadn't left, more than a 15-year career, I wouldn't have helped people the way I have. I wouldn't have transformed people's lives. I wouldn't have helped a single mom get an offer while she's still in India and change her entire life moving because she got a job from a company in North America. I wouldn't have helped someone who was a truck driver without a degree, who was living in a part of the world that was not, lifestyle friendly, to working at one of the top gaming companies in Europe and having an amazing life with his partner. So this is when I realized starting over is a blessing. But do you see how the emotion that I'm leaving you is very clear? It's focused. I'm not throwing a whole bunch of feelings at you and takeaways. It's a single emotion that I'm leaving you with. Wow, I'm inspired. Starting over is a blessing, right? That is the power of knowing your North Star. And let me tell you something. If I hadn't figured out what I wanted to do with my life and become a career coach, then I wouldn't have written that story. Okay? So that is the power of being clear on your North Star. Now, here's another example of a client who got clear on their North Star and crushed their interview after searching for so long, to the extent that he put himself in a position where he can get back to the $250,000, $500,000 mark because he identified his North Star. And all of a sudden, when he identified his North Star, his stories became concise, they became clear, they left the hiring manager with a clear takeaway and an emotion that ended up getting him an offer. So that is the power and the importance of identifying your North Star. When you identify it, your messaging becomes clear. Your hiring manager takeaway becomes clear because you know where you want to go. And so you help them understand where you want to go. Okay? All right. When you have a clear North Star, you become better at creating a single story takeaway and a single emotion, which causes the hiring manager to take action, just like how my dad got me to take action and stop eating candy when I was a kid. All right? So here's another symptom of what happens when you don't know what you want to do, and you start copying everyone else and chat GPTing your resume and thinking, oh, that person, that influencer who's sharing the resume that got them into Amazon or Microsoft or whatever, I'm just going to copy the resume because if I do that, I will achieve the same result. And none of you understand the backstory. I mean, that person may not be sharing with you that he might have known someone and that's how he got in. That person may not be sharing with you that he went to a networking event and that's how he got in. And it may not have been the resume, right? That person may not be sharing with you that they might have shiny companies on their resume and you don't. So you need to work harder and find another angle in order to stand out. Okay? So who can tell me if they'd watch a movie when the cover pretty much looks like any other movie? Do you see this? This is a powerful visual. This is what happens. This is literally what recruiters deal with. Your resumes and your interview answers look almost the same pattern. Okay. Mistake number 2. A lot of you, when you write your stories, you write from the beginning instead of starting from the end. What do I mean by that? Anyone has tried this technique where they start from the end or they think about the ending of their story and then write it that way? Anyone has tried that technique? Here's an example of a story that a client shared with me during a call. Okay, this is how it sounds, and this is what all of you sound, and I say this out of love. I used to do the same thing. Okay. In 2021, I was responsible for defining and driving the roadmap. The challenge was multifaceted. We had an existing distribution channel, but no one looked at it as an opportunity for revenue. The pipeline was constantly breaking. We were putting a lot of expenditure. There were multiple obstacles. The systems were so interconnected. It was never looked at. When I looked at the responsibility and had deeper conversations, we were able to create a pathway and design the architecture and facilitate the meetings. And I brought in Agile and I worked with a vendor. And then we were able to negotiate the pricing and, push out this premium feature. Anyone understood the story? Anyone understood the story? I'm curious. What is wrong with this story? Who can share that with me? It's a lot to digest. It's a lot to digest. And the reason the person struggled, and I see this in a lot of you, is because he wrote the story by thinking about what happened at the beginning, what happened in the middle, what happened in the end, and you don't even know what the takeaway is going to be because you haven't thought, hey, at the end of the day, what do I want the hiring manager to know? So the same thing, trying to fit a lot of ideas in one story. He was trying to share that he was able to monetize opportunities. He was trying to share the strategic thinking. He was trying to share his knowledge of roadmaps all in one story. And what ended up is talking more about the how versus the so what. So here's a powerful question I asked him when we were in the session. I said, hey, this is what I do. I let the person just, get it out of their chest. And then I ask a simple question. What is the one takeaway you want the hiring manager to know about you? So he sat there, he thought for a minute, and I said, here, I'm going to turn off the camera. I'm going to put myself on mute. I'm going to give my dog his medicine, just to give him some space to think about that. And then I come back, I turn on my camera, And this is what he tells me. He says, I was sitting with my developers in this room. They were tearing their hair because for the millionth time, we have this annoying client calling us, complaining about how they can't have access to these articles. Okay? So I'm just like, you know what? That's enough. We are slaving ourselves fixing these defects. Why don't we just charge them a premium for this feature? So he said, I went to my boss and I said, why are we putting this out for free when there's so much opportunity there? Obviously, there's so much demand for these articles. We can turn this product feature into another stream of revenue. And this is when my boss realized that I'm the kind of guy who has a gift for monetizing opportunities. And isn't that an amazing trait to have as a product manager, my friends? Do you see how the story is so simple, yet so effective? Because we focused on the takeaway and we worked backwards. That's why the story is so good. Another example. This was a client who shared his story initially with me. And I asked him the same question. What was the one takeaway you want your audience to learn about you? This is how short and punchy the story became. So if you want to be concise, work backwards. Your story is going to be a lot more fun when you do that. Mistake number 3, you don't share the transformation. I'm going to tell you all a secret. Companies want someone who's going to make changes in their organization. I know it doesn't feel that way sometimes. Believe me, I know. Even my clients, they come to me with the desire to change, but sometimes there's resistance when I get them to do things differently. Okay? But at the end of the day, right? At the end of the day, even though companies secretly do not want to do the work, they do want to make changes. That's why they hire us all, because they're struggling with something. So whatever story you share needs to show a transformation. It needs to show you as a change agent. It needs to show what life was like before you came in and what life was like after. But a lot of you don't do that. You just go into instructional manual mode and you don't show the transformation. I'm going to share with you an insane presentation that Steve Jobs did. This is a very popular presentation when the iPhone just came out. Here's how he goes through the presentation. He starts with, I have something revolutionary. It's going to change the world. It's a smartphone. So everyone goes like, yay! And then he goes, but smartphones exist and they're stupid. He took people from the high to the low. And they're like, oh my God, this is horrible. And then he takes them up again. But mine is smarter than your computer at home. Do you see that roller coaster? He took them on a transformation. Okay? Here's how Disney does it. Since I promised that this is all from Disney, I have to show you proof that Disney does it. On the left, everyone know Toy Story, first of all? Who's a fan of Toy Story? Anyone? Anyone? Come on. You're quiet today. Share with me. It feels weird talking to myself. Anyone familiar with Toy Story? No one is familiar with Toy Story? Come on. No one has seen it as a kid? Or your kids maybe have seen it? That's your homework. You need to watch Toy Story. Andy, thank you. Okay, wonderful. So even in Toy Story, there's a transformation, right? The transformation that Andy went through is that he wanted to be, or sorry, Woody, what am I saying? The transformation that Woody went through is that he wanted to be Andy's favorite toy, which is so childish, right? I want to be the favorite. I want to be the best. And then in his story, there's a transformation, there's a change, there's growth. Woody learns that he needs to share a friendship. That is what we mean transformation, and that's what's missing in a lot of your stories. So the previous story that I shared with you from my client, who basically was dealing with a situation where support is constantly being flooded with calls and there are a lot of defects because of this one feature. He went from a yes person as a product manager, yeah, let's just keep getting the clients wanting these fixes, to becoming a leader and going to his boss and saying, hey, there's an opportunity here. We can turn this into a premium feature and charge more for it, therefore adding and monetizing and bringing in a new stream of revenue. Yeah, there is a lag and it is annoying. And I apologize for it. Maybe if anyone knows anyone who works at LinkedIn, provide that feedback. Okay. All right. The last mistake that I wanted to go over is there is no heart in your story. Oh my goodness. And here's the problem when there's no heart in your story. Your tone becomes robotic. It shows that you don't care. And we all know that it's mostly body language. Only 7%. Studies have shown when it comes to communication is only 7% is what you say. And the rest is your body language and your tone. And when there's no heart in your story, inevitably, you're going to sound like a robot. So here's an example of how I took a client story from robotic to a story with heart. One of my clients shared that he was a truck driver and he basically discovered the world of gaming, and he was able to launch his product on the Apple Store. It's a good story, but it can use more emotion. All right? And the emotion that he shared with me, that when he was driving his truck, every time there was a stop, he used that as an opportunity to work on that app. The guy would literally stop for gas. He would use that opportunity to work on his product, to the point that the other truck drivers were like, what the heck are you working on or watching that you're so obsessed about? And do you see how the story has more heart now when we bring that in? Because now, without him saying that he has grit, you can tell that he has grit just from what he shared through the story. All right? Okay. So now that I've shared with you all of these amazing techniques, I know that you have a ton of questions. I know you are thinking, all right, Nada, we learned these storytelling techniques, but what about my resume? How do I apply this to? How can I get feedback, on my stories? What is next? So I wanted to share with you that I have a storytelling bootcamp. Okay? Who's interested in knowing more about it? Tell me in the chat if you're interested in knowing more about it. If you do, then I will tell you more about it. Who wants to learn more about my storytelling bootcamp? And by the way, if it's lagging for you, just hit the refresh button. And also don't maximize the screen because that's what creates the lag. Yes, 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 yes. Okay. All right, you convinced me. I'll tell you more about it. So, here's what I'm going to do. Since we have 10 minutes, the first 20 people, right after I end this live, who message me, you can message me to get a resume review or a LinkedIn review. That is basically I do see them popping up. Yes. So the first 20 people who message me as a gift, you get a free resume or LinkedIn review. That's number one. So don't wait until 8 o'clock to do that, which is about 6 minutes from now, because what's going to happen is my LinkedIn is going to crash. Last time I got flooded to the point that I couldn't even log in into my LinkedIn. And then your message is going to be buried and I'm not going to be able to get to you. Okay. And it's only 20 people that I'm offering this to because obviously I have a life and I'm going to lose my voice if I review the 300 people's resumes that are on this live. Okay. DM me. Don't put a comment because I'm not going to be able to go through the comments later. DM me with your resume if you want the review. Also, there are 300 people in this live, and I only have room for literally 15 people in the storytelling bootcamp. So if you're the kind of person who is struggling with your messaging, you have more than 10 years of experience, and it feels like you are trying to dig through cobwebs and you want to be able to have the ability to share the experience that you've had with someone on the outside who has product context, who can help you connect the dots. If you are the kind of person who is struggling to know whether the next best step for you is in a particular job, you don't want to undersell yourself, but you have imposter syndrome and you don't want to go after an unreasonable goal, right? Then the bootcamp is also the perfect fit for you because I have a proprietary career archetype quiz where I literally, and there are people in this live who can tell you that it has been life-changing for them to go through the career archetype quiz and get clarity and understand themselves more and see what is the best ideal job is for them so that their North Star is focused, so that their messaging is focused. Even if you are within product, you need to have a niche. And it's so important, especially if you're a jack of all trades, to be clear on what that North Star is. So if you are that person, then that could be a great fit for you. If you are the kind of person who is too wordy in your communication, who exhibits the symptoms that I shared in this live, where you don't have one takeaway, you struggle what that one takeaway should be, you're not sure what the right story is, you feel like you're faking it and the emotion is lacking in your stories, right? Then the boot camp is also a great fit for you. Okay? Message me if you want to learn more. It is a community-based program, and that's what I love about it. I have done A/B testing with my one-on-one clients, and then I've done A/B testing with people who have completed this new program. And the results are accelerated because I want you to imagine for a second, it's almost like being in a Pixar storytelling room where all the writers are bouncing ideas off of each other. And you listen to someone else's story that they've had in their job. And you're like, oh my God, I did this too. This is going to save me time. I am inspired by this person's story. And that is the magical thing about being part of the community. And yes, I review every single person's story myself. There's no other career coach. It's just me. And I take the time to give every single person feedback. So it's pretty much the best of both worlds, where you get the one-on-one attention from me, and you also get the help of the community as well as networking opportunities. So if this sounds good to you and you're tired of following the herd and, chat GPTing your answers and having a movie poster that looks like everyone else, then take some action and send me a message and let me know that you're interested in the storytelling bootcamp, because I'll tell you, I've had people that told me in the last minute and I wasn't able to fit them into my cohort, and they regretted it because of that. Because the longer you wait, the longer you wait to work on your communication, your messaging, your storytelling, the longer it's going to take you to land that job. And we're heading the holidays now, so now is definitely the best time before we get into that blackout period and becomes even harder to get a job because everyone is gone for Christmas. Okay, so send me a DM as soon as you can if you're very serious and are interested about the boot camp, and we can hop on a call. We can determine if this is something that is in alignment with you, because a lot of people know this. I'm very protective about my community. I'm very protective about the energy, and it has to be the right fit. And I'll share with you all the details. There's no secrets. All right. Thank you so much. I hope you all have gotten at least one takeaway. I'm curious, just for statistical purposes and to help me create content that's going to benefit you, what was the biggest takeaway that you got from today? Plop in the chat and tell me. I'm very curious. What is the biggest takeaway that you got today that you're intending on incorporating in your stories in the future? Emotions, yes. We underestimate the importance of being ourselves and bringing in emotions. When you bring in emotion, your interview answer becomes a conversation instead of a lecture. It actually shows that you care about what you do and the job that you do. Body language, yes. Telling it backwards. It's not telling it backwards. I'm going to correct you. It's figuring out the ending and writing it from and reverse engineering it. But when you tell the story, obviously you need to tell it from the beginning. Okay? And by the way, I practiced what I preached today. I incorporated a lot of stories in my presentation to help you understand things, right? Give your heart while storytelling. Did I sound like a robot today? I told my story to you from my heart, and that is what you need to do. This is why when I look at my analytics on LinkedIn, the percentage of people who stay till the end is very high compared to others. Not telling too much and being all over the place. Absolutely. And storytelling is going to help you with that. And you know what? It's hard to identify your own story. I had to work with a coach. I coach people, but I had to work with a coach to help me write my story because I couldn't see it. I didn't know if it was good enough. I didn't know which story is going to resonate. It's important to bounce it off someone who is trained to help you with that. Wonderful. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for sharing. We are literally at 8 o'clock. So just a reminder, I can only fit in 20 people in my bootcamp. So if you are serious about this, then message me as soon as possible. And then if you also want to get that LinkedIn and resume review, I will cap it to 20 people only. So try your luck. It's not going to hurt. Think of it as the lottery. But if you don't play the lottery, then you're never going to win, right? So who knows? You might be number 20, or you might be number 1 or 8 or 5. So try your luck. All right, friends, I hope you learned a lot, and thank you so much. Have a great night.